All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, our fellow wrestlers out there. Welcome back. Episode 6 of Samurai Brothers Wrestling, our podcast. I'm John. I'm here with my brother Matthew, and we're back to talk some wrestling again. This is kind of the this is post wrestling, season. The NCAAs are done. Very much most of the state tournaments are done at this point because we're starting to do a lot of national tournaments. There's a lot of USA wrestling events going on right now. So what we're going to do is, Matthew, our first topics tonight, just to kind of see stuff that's going on. We're going to talk about the tournament we talked about last week. Now, you and I think we didn't necessarily know which tournament this was going to be, but the tournament we're going to just kind of review in short is going to be the National High School Coaches Association Folk Style Nationals, and it seems that that's an open tournament for middle schoolers and high schoolers to try and boost their profile, on the national stage. Because if you place top 8, you're an All-American, very much like, the, national tournaments at the college level. So this is to give, those wrestlers a profile boost. And it also actually qualifies them for the bigger tournament, which is the United States Marine Corps Folk Style Nationals, which is actually going to be coming up this upcoming weekend, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the program tonight. So, Matthew, welcome, and hope you've been having a great week. And things got pretty exciting as we discussed last week about just how things went. Penn State, taking the title in convincing fashion. Five of five, champions, for the finals, and it's just amazing what Kale, does for that Penn State program. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I actually got a little bit of insight from what Kale has said versus what Brands has said on basically their philosophies of coaching, which is that Kale wants to help these guys accomplish their dreams, which in 5 cases they became NCAA champions. Whereas Brands is just like, oh, I wish I could accomplish that. So and like I said, Brands is kind of more of an I've met Brands in person. I've met his brother Terry, and they're really intense guys. They've got more of like a philosophy of intensity. And while as I've said before, while that does produce results, you do also have someone like Kale who's just like, well, let's work hard, but let's have fun doing it, which is has also been brought up in broadcast at the NCAA, where the commentators are just like, where commentators are saying that Kale says, let's go have fun. And if you think about it, that's kind of something that I think was probably brought onto him by Bobby Douglas. Gable, I don't know if Gable had necessarily like this big old intensity, but he doesn't look like the type of guy who is just like go. He would, but it might have gone. Whereas Kale, on the other hand, as I said, he's kind of got a little bit more of a philosophy, and I feel like I said, I feel like Bobby Douglas was just more of a positive guy. Like I said, I don't think Dan Gable is necessarily a negative guy. He just got a different way of going about.
Well, Gable definitely seems like a guy who's like, he's going in there to do business. He's gonna go in, do his thing, walk off the mat, and be like, just whatever.
Well, you're talking about a guy who, after the day after he won his gold medal, he went for a run. Who go? I can tell you right now, there was no day after like at the end of my postseason or the day after I went for a run. There was no day. Whereas Gable, the day after he won his Olympic gold medal, he goes for a run, and I think that was the what was it, the Zurich?
Was this I think it was the 72 Olympics.
Yeah, the 72 Olympics. So I believe that he was in Germany at the time. So he goes for a run out in Germany, and just like, whereas I have no idea if Kale did the same thing necessarily.
That would be interesting. It's like, Kale, what did you do the day after you won the gold medal? And just to see what his response to that was.
Well, yeah, and if you think about it, those two both won one gold medal. I mean, they were known for these careers, but then of course now they've been. I would argue that in both cases, Kale accomplished something very unique. Gable was definitely up there, but let's face it, the best he could have done was tie Dan Hodge. Dan Hodge has an award named after him at the championships, and while there is stuff named after Gable, Gable's legacy was more as a coach, and whereas Kale, has kind of he's in this very small club, but then on top of that, he accomplished something that no one ever accomplished, which is going completely undefeated in your 4 years of eligibility in college. So,
which, by the way, for everyone, right now it's our wrestler from Missouri. Gosh, man, I'm already forgetting stuff because I'm, just got my head filled with all the stuff we're going to talk about today. But, our boy from Missouri, let me see here. Let me get his name out there. O'Toole, yes. Keegan O'Toole. He is undefeated in his freshman season. So he does have a chance to tie, Kale. Will he do it? I mean, anything can happen in wrestling. It doesn't matter. You can be ranked number one and you can get knocked off in your first match. We've seen that happen time and time again, but there is that possibility of happening. Another thing I'd like to point out, Matt, since you mentioned Dan, Hodge and the Hodge Trophy, the winner this year did go to Gable Stevenson, and he is officially the only heavyweight wrestler to win the award twice, according to posts I'm seeing on IG. So congratulations to Gable for that winning that award. I think it, you have to accomplish quite a lot, in the tournament to be able to do that. So, and the fact that he's the only heavyweight to do it twice, I think speaks volumes to his achievements too.
Well, and on top of that, I guess that could add to his marketability in the WWE. I would very much like to see what would happen if they were like try to do some kind of like passing of the torch between him and either Bobby Lashley or Brock Lesnar. Of course, I don't know. It would definitely be something interesting because if you think about it, those two kind of have the same it's the same gimmicks, which is that they're these big muscular actual wrestlers who have gone and actually been able to do some like pro wrestling or some MMA work. So they've established themselves as kind of like these old-fashioned shoot fighters, which was kind of the standard for pro wrestling for the longest time.
Well, and the other thing is, Brock Lesnar and Gable have something very much in common. They're both from the University of Minnesota, and they both are heavyweights winning the national title. So, there's things to.
Oh yeah, Brock wrestled under Jay Robinson.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
One of many champions he produced.
Yep. So anyway, Matthew, shall we get right into what we're going to discuss today then? So first thing offhand, again, just kind of wanted to review how the National High School Coaching Association folk style tournament went. So you have this was basically a tournament. They had it divided into 6 divisions, which was girls all together, and then you had middle school boys, freshman boys, sophomore, junior, and seniors.
Now, I
So
do have a question about the middle school boys, because the definition is not uniform even across school districts within the same state. When I went, the middle school that I went to was 6th, 7th, 8th. What's the divisions? What are they? What schools?
So I have to look it up, but at least, my understanding these days is that if most states are gonna, the definition of middle school is going to be 6th, 7th, and 8th. Now, I remember before we moved to Japan, when I was going to, elementary school, our elementary school went up to 6th grade, and then the middle school that was a block down was 7th and 8th only. So, I think they've obviously changed that definition since then, but I would be interested, like you're saying, what is the actual
Well, and like I said, it's not uniform across school districts. Like our cousin, I think he went to a 6th, 7th, 8th, but like for example, our neighbor, I think he went to a 7th, 8th in Orange, and that's both in Orange County.
Mhm.
So even across school districts, I don't think it's necessarily uniform.
So I am looking at the website, and the NHSCA, the way they have it is 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Okay, that probably just makes it for those who, because for some of these kids might still be in elementary school, but I think they do that just because of the new definition is 6th, 7th, 8th. Well, one thing to remember.
One thing I am curious about, though, I think in now I don't know the for certain. I'm trying to look up to see what their rules are based on this, but I think for middle school they might have boys and girls wrestling together. I don't know that's the case, but that's why I'm trying to look it up right now. But at least what they're saying for the girls, it's basically if you were enrolled in 9th through 12th, that means you're in the girls division. Whatever your eligibility was, if you're on the boys side, your eligibility is based on what, your eligibility was for the academic school year. So if you were a freshman, then
it's still technically the school year.
Right.
So I think you would just go by that definition.
Yeah. So I'm looking at this. They don't really define, whether it's boys and girls for middle school. So,
Well, if it's let's obviously not getting too much into the issue, but I think middle school is still when it's pretty
pretty equal.
It's still pretty equal at that point. The boys haven't they might be hitting their growth spurt, but they're not like weight class wise. They're not, unless they're like cutting mega weight, which you should not be doing in middle school. They're not going to be these big behemoth muscular boys unless you're that one kid. My 8th grade year, one of the 7th graders on the wrestling team was 280 pounds, and he was not like all fat. He was just a big boy.
Probably like on his way to becoming a high school linebacker or something.
Probably
defensive lineman.
Yeah.
So I am looking at the middle school. I think it might be a boys only division, but
my eighth grade year was very interesting. I gotta say that my 8th grade year in wrestling, like I went undefeated. I beat 2 team captains from other teams. So I was the Kanto Plains League champion, but there was just some interesting stuff going on. Like that was the first time that we had girls on the team, but an interesting thing, we had a heavyweight girl. And because of how few like giant heavyweights there were, because they went round robins in the tournaments, it's like she and the big guy would always wrestle this one other guy who, and it was very interesting to say the least.
So let's I'm gonna screen share real quick just to have everybody see the basically this is the placers. Matthew, can you see this is from Flo's website. So just to kind of go over who placed for California. There I was seeing at 103 you had
We're being very regional here.
Right.
State loyalty.
Yeah, we're homegrown, halfway in California, and then homegrown halfway in Japan, you could say. But we're doing what we can. Kaylani Schufelt from Huntington Beach, and I checked Matthew the records, and she is from Marina High School, and she was one of the finalists at the CIF state tournament.
Oh, so she was part of that state championship. I mentioned this to Dad because I live with our parents, and I mentioned that to Dad, and he was like, "What?" Oh, I mentioned that to our aunt, who was also from Marina, and she was like, "What?" the first state, the first state title in anything that Marina High School has won.
Yeah, I'd be kind of curious to find that out if they've ever won anything before. They probably another alumni from Marina High School is Victoria Anthony, who you would probably
Oh yeah, world
placer.
I think she is a world champion.
Yeah, world champion.
CIF champion back when there was only one division.
And I had the opportunity to meet her at
judo champion, judo national champion.
At Santa Ana College. We did a clinic for girls 1 year, and one of our coaches talked to her and got her to come out, and she put out a clinic and stuff. Very good thing, talking about life experiences and how when she had to wrestle, she obviously had to wrestle with the boys then and stuff, but very, very nice person to be around. And I think she's also been getting into MMA recently too.
Oh really? She's going into it. Oh, that would be interesting.
Yeah. So so we got Kaylani,
because one of her contemporaries, Tatiana Padilla Suarez, also a world champion. She's in the UFC, but she's been dealing with some injuries lately. Something crazy about her. She was, in high school, she wrestled in 135, but I think she wrestled in 50, I don't know, like 53 kilos or whatever it was when she won a world title or something like that. And then in MMA, so far in the UFC, she's been cutting down to 115. She's undefeated. And then she's saying, I think I'm going to go back to 125 because the weight cut took too much out of me that I was essentially fighting tired. And I was like, you were fighting tired, and everyone was, and she dominated those matches. She hasn't had a close fight her entire, and I was just like, you didn't know you're tired? Oh, I'd love to see her when she's like fully going in full strength. But that's going to be an interesting division because you've got Valentina Shevchenko, who has a judo background. She might have a sambo background, Muay Thai background. Who a lot of people consider her the best female fighter right now since Amanda Nunez lost.
Pound?
Yeah, pound for pound, because Amanda Nunez lost to Juliana Pena. So that would be that would be interesting. But yeah, it's I'd love to see what Victoria does if she does MMA. That'd be interesting. I'd also like to see what Helen Marlis would be able to do in MMA because my teammate, one of one of the few claims to fame I have on MOBAP is that I could say I was a teammate of Olympic gold medalist.
So anyway, just to kind of get back on track here. So anyway, moving up. So then at 112 pounds, we had two wrestlers, and they actually faced each other in the 7/8 match. Vanessa Alvarado from and Bakersfield, and this is just where they're from. This isn't necessarily their high schools. I don't think they were assigning them by teams. And then you got Mackenzie Muniz of Riverside. I checked, and these two did not wrestle at the state tournament. So either they missed it at Masters or something. So they may or may not be seeing them, in the state tournament. I know we won't be seeing Kehlani because she was a senior this year, so she'll be moving on to bigger and better things, hopefully.
I forgot. Does placing in this tournament qualify you for the showcase tournament?
Yes.
Okay, so these two girls who didn't
they can go and wrestle for the show.
They didn't even place, and they were able to make it into the
I'll have to double check to make sure if it's the showcase tournament, specifically for if it's for boys only or girls. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll make sure we can look at the site just to make sure. But the way it was
talking about this tournament is interesting because it makes the high school postseason a little bit more interesting.
Well, and and it's not necessarily, when you're looking at this, you can see how each state compares to everyone, but this isn't not necessarily everyone is at this tournament.
Right. These are the people trying to qualify for.
These are people that are trying to qualify. I mean, Miss Kehlani, she placed second at the CIF girls tournament back, earlier this month. She didn't necessarily have to wrestle this tournament. My guess is, one of the things that's a possibility is that, maybe they got something going on, so they can't go to the upcoming tournament, but they had time this weekend. There's always that. It's like some people will go to,
or maybe she's trying to get a better seed.
Yeah, that's possible too. Sometimes you got people they'll go to the Cal Open, but they won't go to the U.S. Open, or they might, like you said, that's a very good point. They might be trying to do the Cal Open so that they can improve their standing at the U.S. Open. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see. How if these wrestlers are going on to the showcase tournament. So let me see here. At 120 pounds, Carissa Qureshi from Irvine, she placed second. And I did check. She was a placer at the tournament. And I think she was a junior, if I was reading it right. Let me see if I can find her on here.
I noticed that she lost to a New York gal in the finals. My understanding is New York is another one of those states that has a pretty good history of wrestling. Not only that, but they're also, in addition to California, they're one of the few states that has a single tournament.
Right.
Them and I believe New Jersey is another one as well.
Jersey, I would not be surprised. I mean, aside from.
Well, Jersey, it makes perfect sense because there might be a higher population density, but they're a smaller state. It would make more sense if the smaller states are the ones.
Even though they might be a smaller population, my understanding is Jersey is actually a very high, intense level state when it comes to the level of wrestling there.
Yeah, that's my understanding
also,
too.
You've got some of the best prep schools there. You've got some of the best recruits. I mean, look at Suriano. Suriano's a New Jersey, guy.
Well, Well, you know, and then
He
in
wrestled
addition,
in the 25 finals is also from New Jersey.
well, yeah, and I should note that that was something because we actually had when I was at MOBAP, we actually got a few wrestlers from New Jersey.
I mean, if you have to look at, the levels, I mean, obviously Oklahoma is going to be up there. Iowa is going to be up there. Pennsylvania, I think, is consistently up there.
That's one of
Even
the
though,
reasons. Just giving another background, that's actually one of the reasons why Kale chose Penn State when it came to going somewhere else was because he knew that there was a lot of homegrown talent there. Obviously, he gets people from all over the country, but he knew that there was a lot of homegrown talent there. So he knew that that was a good place where, if necessary, you could just put, you could get everyone feeder straight into Penn State from the state.
And like we've mentioned before, who would not want to wrestle for Cale Sanderson?
Yeah. Well, I think it would have to come down to like loyalty. Like if you're an Iowa guy, you want to go to Iowa and you wrestle for Tom Brands. If you're from Oklahoma, you want to go to Oklahoma State and you want to wrestle for John Smith. It's more of a state loyalty thing than anything.
So yeah, she did.
But because Kale did wrestle at Iowa State, if you could also make that case of
But he's not an Iowa native.
No, he's from Utah, land of the prophets.
Anyway, so we've got Koreshi from Irvine, so she placed second. If we're going down the list, just kind of now it looks like 128 was pretty stacked when it came to California girls because half the placers were from California.
Giselle Guerrero, Downey, Candace Boyd, Bakersfield, Jasmine Molina, La Mirada, Stacy Gillard, Newport Beach. Is she Marina?
No, she was from. I think her high school is Newport Harbor.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, none of these girls are from Marina, but I think and I think a few of these girls were placers at the state too. But that tells you how stacked that weight class was in terms of.
There's a few California girls at 136 as well.
Yes, so you got Stephanie Chavez from Downey, and then you have Charlize Jewell from Tustin, and her high school is Foothill. So Foothill.
Oh. Well, just talking about Foothill, you're what was his name? Who was the 3-guy state champion who always wrestled with Sack?
Brian Moreno.
Yeah, Brian Moreno. Probably could have done well at Sack. Well, part of his problem was he didn't. My understanding is he unfortunately, even though he was a 3-time state champion, my understanding was he unfortunately didn't have the grades, and 125 was stacked at the time at Sack. So
yeah.
It was a bummer because he probably could have gone far.
Would have been interesting. Yeah.
Definitely. He should have gone in and just did a red shirt.
Yeah.
Should have.
At 144, we've got Alexis Jimenez. Doesn't really say where she's from. She took third. Aliyah Pineda from Cyprus, and I think if I were to look at her no, sorry, that's not. So she's from Valencia, so that's kind of interesting. So yeah, she's from Valencia High School.
Oh, Mo's High School.
Yeah.
Mo's still there, right? You're aware.
Yeah, actually when I was reffing CIF at Temecula, Valencia was the Empire League, happened to be in that division. So yes, I did see Mo, and he asked about you. So he said hi and everything, and just told him how you doing.
He was always such a nice guy. He was always for those of you who don't know, Matt Mahoney was one of the assistant coaches while I was in high school, and he was always he was a nice guy. He was like one of the first guys that Stewart coached at high school. He was the son of the football coach at the time. And even when I was there, and he was just the nicest guy. He actually went to Cal Poly.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he went to. Yeah, he. I think it was pre John Azevedo. I don't know who was before that, but it was pre John Azevedo.
So
But yeah, it nicest guy.
so yeah, just shout out to Coach Mahoney, Valencia High School.
Mr. Mo, Mahoney and Tubi. There's actually a song. There's actually a song that says Mahoney and Tubi. Yeah, nicest guy.
So here's one where the result stuck. And 160 pounds, Kalila Shrive. It says she's from Tracy. Now she won her weight class. And when I looked, where's the brackets? She was the 160 champion from Merrill West High School. So it looks like that's in the Sac Joaquin section. So she won that weight class, CIF state, and then she, applied that at the national tournament. Although it looks like she had a close finals, it was 5-2. So, obviously that's as we've seen from a lot of times, depending on the level, it's like girls matches, finish pretty quickly. So
wow, the heavyweight. There were not a whole lot of heavyweights.
no, yeah, it looks like there
were 4.
So yeah, 185 we had a placer. 180 we had actually 2 placers, and then yeah, it looks like there was only 2 girls. Although probably if I were to look,
there were 4. I could see them. There were 4.
If I were to look at the brackets, yep.
Oh, there were 6.
Oh, there was 5.
There were 5. Okay.
But I guess in their case, they did not place the. They decided not to show the top placer. But it is what it is. So after counting it, Matthew, I made sure to keep count of it, and so there were 14 girls who ended up placing at this tournament from California.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went into how
let's skip the middle schoolers. There's not. It's like these we have.
Well, yeah, I did take count. So I don't know if you see the list I have of my notes. Probably not.
Just say how many middle schoolers there were for Cal.
Yeah, so there was 1 middle schooler who placed. So they'll just have to develop, and give them time, and something will come out of it, regarding them. Although it looks like the biggest middle school weight class is 230 pounds. So if you're only 13 years old, the biggest you can be on a wrestling tournament is 230 pounds. So, just make sure you don't eat too much barbecue or something. Anyway, so if I look,
unless you're what's the kid, the Yates, Travis Yates, he was a big middle schooler. I think he was 2 something.
Yeah, he was big. So freshmen, there were only 2 freshmen. I know that I found this Alden Simmons from Bakersfield. So I'm not gonna try and figure out if he placed or not. Maybe he did. If he did, great. I'm just kind of recognizing them here, just to make sure we're seeing. And then I think the other freshman was a bit on the heavier side. That placed. Yeah, here he is. Adam Stanley from Bakersfield, California. So heavyweight. So go figure. But then the interesting thing was that there was actually a lot of sophomores that placed. There were 9 sophomores from California that ended up placing at this tournament. I think the really big profile name on here is at 113, Isaiah Quintero from El Dorado High School. He was the state champion. So from the someone representing from the OC.
Wait, he was a state champion, so he could have gone to the other tournament.
Well, he may be going to the other tournament. I mean, just the fact that he goes out and wins this tournament, certainly boosts his profile. This is probably will, I mean, he's guaranteed to be at that tournament now if he's.
You gotta wonder what Scott Lawson is thinking.
I don't know what Scott Lawson's thinking on this.
I know what. No, not Scott.
Steve Lawson. You're right. Steve Lawson.
I got the brothers big.
God, I don't even know what happened to Scott Lawson.
Isn't he coaching out in the Empire somewhere?
Last time I saw Scott Lawson, he was coaching for a school out in Corona, I believe. I think it was like
Santiago.
Yeah, Santiago Corona. I
think.
There's
two. There's Corona High School and then there's Santiago Corona. He actually did pretty well coaching there, as I recall.
So I'd have to look up
the Lawson brothers. There was a third Lawson brother who wrestled, but I don't think he was involved in the coaching side of things. That was Scott and Steve. Well, anyways, so yeah, I guess for our audience who wasn't familiar with it, we'll just say that Steve Lawson is an interesting person. We'll just say that and leave it at that.
So let me see here. Yes, so we do have a second place finisher. Here's an interesting match. So Richard Murillo from Moreno Valley. Now he lost his match 26-14. So
doing takedowns on each other?
They must have been. I mean, now I actually officiated.
This sounds like some kind of takedown derby.
Math. So I actually officiated a match at CIF where the guy scored a combined 30+ points, but that was in like a consolation match or something. But to have a 40-point finals, yeah, that's quite something. So, how that goes, I don't know, but yeah, that's interesting to see that.
You don't see you don't see that a whole lot.
So
at all in any situation.
Yeah. By the way, so I think this Christian Herrera at 126 from Bakersfield, the name looks familiar. I think I saw it on the placings. Let me see if it does. It may or may not be coming up. Does not looking like it, but I swear.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it either.
Yeah, here he is. So he got to. So yeah, it looks like he did qualify for the CIF state, but it looks like he was out after. In fact, he was the 9th place finisher for the central section.
And yet here he is.
So yeah, he goes out. He goes out to this tournament. Of course, one thing to remember about this tournament is you're wrestling against people your age. So you're not necessarily wrestling against older guys, especially if because it looks like he is a sophomore. So he's wrestling with guys his age, not necessarily older guys than himself. Let me see here. So who else do we? This Colin Guffrey from San Diego. So probably.
Is he a Poway guy?
Probably in the Poway club. I don't. Let's see if his name comes up. Colin. Oh yes, right here. From Granite Hills, he was the 2nd place finisher at San Diego.
I've heard of Granite Hills before. I think they're like big in the AAU circuit.
Probably.
Yeah, because for casual fans, there's USA Wrestling, which is the more predominant organization, but then there's the AAU, who used to handle most sports, and like 2 decades ago, they still had somewhat of a wrestling presence.
I think it was AAU that was the one that was organizing the events for determining who is going to qualify for the Olympics and the world team and all that.
It wasn't
And
just
somehow,
and it wasn't just for wrestling, it was for most sports. But I think the problem was a lot of people started protesting, saying you guys have too much of a monopoly. And then that's when other sports organizations started taking over, and the AAU, in terms of like the Olympic level, started losing their power. They lost their power, but there's still, my understanding is they're still pretty crucial in like being able to start other like sports like little kid little league.
yeah, my understanding is when it comes to AAU, there's not as much restrictions in certain policies or areas when it comes to running a wrestling club or maybe a club in general. Now, I don't know that for fact. It's what I've heard, so I can't confirm that, but that's what I've heard.
That would be something to, I guess, do research and
think
discuss a little bit further down the line.
I also think it's easier to start up an AAU club, even though it's not as popular.
Well, it was also easier to do an AAU tournament. Like, you remember, we went to those AAU tournaments. We didn't even have to get an AAU membership.
Right.
We had to pay more. We had to pay more, but it was easy to get the AAU membership or into AAU. But they did those weird, like, double elimination round robins. You remember that? I never understood that weird round robin.
A double elimination round robin is such a terrible thing because
that's worse than single elimination.
Yeah, it probably is worse than single elimination. You can be stuck between two really good people, and if you got the short end of the stick in terms of the draw, well, it was fun knowing you. You know, that's how that ends up happening.
I remember some of those AAU tournaments, you know, it's like I got one tough guy and then I got another tough guy and I was gone.
Yeah, that happened to me. You know, that would happen to me too.
Right, they had an open division too. Like they had the junior division and they had the open division. It was just
yeah, it was really weird.
I would hope that they would have changed it up, but
so let's try and finish this. So we go up to 152. We have Jake Honey, who is from Bakersfield. After that, we're going to see. We have Diego Costa of Yucaipa, who won the tournament at 182 pounds. Let's see where he was at. Diego Costa. So I don't see him on here. So it looks like he didn't even qualify for CIF state. So he might be somebody that we might be looking out for in the future.
Where did he come? Where is he from again?
He's from Yucaipa.
Yucaipa. Isn't that the desert?
Yeah. But he didn't qualify for CIF state. So I don't know. Hard to tell, but be interesting.
Well, we'll see. This is an open tournament after all.
195. You have Mr. Michael Murillo from Bakersfield take fifth at 220. Looks like we didn't have anybody. And then we did not have anybody at heavyweight. So 9 sophomores from California placed at this tournament. And then in terms of, you had 2 juniors and 3 seniors. You know, I was brushing over this to kind of see where everyone is at, you know, from my earlier research. So, I mean, when it comes far and few between, it's kind of hard to see where everyone is at. Here we go. We've got Ty Montero from Bakersfield.
A lot of guys from Bakersfield, they must have just taken like a road trip together.
Probably, yeah. You know, I mean, that would not be surprising. I don't know that I'm finding where the other person is. So apologies to that person for not bringing up his name. Then if we go to the senior weight class, and look at this, Matthew. They did not even have a 106 division for seniors. Which, I mean, is that surprising?
It's extremely rare to see a senior. Though there was that one guy my senior year, the Calvary Chapel kid who was like 106.
That was some kid, like a really small kid, but really good, and he was able to be a 106 senior. Let me see here. So we've got Justin Rodriguez of Westminster, and then Ethan Qureshi from Irvine. I'd imagine that he's related to the Carissa Qureshi from the girls division.
They might be siblings.
I gotta imagine they're siblings.
Are they both from Irvine?
Yeah, they're both from Irvine.
Okay, well, yeah, that can't be a coincidence. They gotta be siblings.
Well, if he's wrestling in the senior, because I think she was a senior too, so they might be twins if they're not cousins.
Well, one thing to remember, I mean, at one point, all three of us were wrestling, but you know, our sister chose not to go that route, and better for her because she did end up going swimming.
So we got, and then last placing senior from California, Ryan Arrington from Long Beach. So there's your placers for at the National High School California National High School Coaches Association folk style tournament.
Well, like we said, most of it's like most of these guys are like most of the wrestlers that are probably going to try to go have already qualified probably at this point. Most of the seniors.
So Matthew, let's get a little bit of international results in. And so this is kind of familiar territory for me. You know, I got to watch this tournament a couple times. As you all know, you know, our family spent time in Japan, and so I decided that I wanted to wrestle, you know, or wanted to go to Japanese school. That's how I learned the language, and I also got to wrestle. And I never qualified for this tournament, but Japan.
Well, didn't you have to win? Didn't you have to win the prefectural tournament in order to qualify for this tournament?
It depends on which tournament you're talking about.
The spring tournament. Well, what about what? Oh, was it top two for this tournament?
So yeah, I'll kind of go over that. So the way the Japanese school calendar works is it starts in April and then it ends in March of the following year. So kind of like, you know, in US.
I wonder how they decided on. I wonder how they decide on spring.
Yeah, maybe. But you know, the U.S. academic calendar starts in August and goes through until May, June, July-ish. Anyway, so with that being said, there's normally 4 national tournaments for high schoolers in Japan because there's not a lot. The population for wrestling in Japan is significantly lower compared to the United States as a whole. In fact,
it's probably comparable to California.
Probably most states are bigger than Japan as a whole when it comes to the wrestling population. So with that being said, there's 2 national tournaments in August, one for freestyle, one for Greco. Then there's a third tournament.
Both.
Right. There's a third tournament in October, which actually it's kind of a team related tournament based on, so you got prefectures, which is the equivalent of states over here, competing against each other to win a team title as a whole based on placing points. And then you've got the spring All Japan National Tournament, which is for your underclassmen, I guess you could say, because so in Japanese school, there's only 3 grades. There's first grade, second grade, and third grade. So the third graders, which is equivalent to seniors in high school over here.
Yeah, I was about to say it would be.
Actually, they've already graduated by the time that this term is going. But before this tournament is held, you do have to qualify. So in my case, I did finish 3rd at the qualifying tournament in the prefecture I was wrestling for. So then I made it to the regional tournament, the Kanto regional tournament.
Oh, this is one of those few tournaments that has regional tournaments.
Yes.
Because like Greco and
you just go straight through the prefecture to the national tournament. So in this case, you could do your prefecture tournament, then you go to your regional tournament. And if you place high enough at your regional tournament, you're going to go to the national tournament.
And one thing we should probably emphasize is the fact that even though there's 48 prefectures in Japan, so it's the state equivalent, but population and geography wise, they're really more like the size of counties if you really think about it.
Yeah. And here's the funny thing is that depending on the size of the prefecture, you could have some prefectures where they're only going to have 3 or 4 schools that have wrestling. So your chance of like in some of these like really out there,
boonies,
really country type, boony type prefectures, you got a better chance of qualifying for a national tournament than you do like if you're in like, the Tokyo metropolis area where you've got like, schools in Yokohama.
Well, one thing I think you do need to emphasize is how like the difference between high school, Japanese high school and American high school, not just in terms of not just in terms of like qualification or anything like that, but how they're structured, because they don't all have, they're not structured the way most American schools are, where most high schools, if the state sponsors that sport, they have it. That's not how it is in Japan, not to mention the fact that compulsory education ends at middle school, and high school is really more like it's like high school is almost similar to getting into college.
Yes, it is. And so I know that basically it's this Japan Wrestling Federation, if everyone can see on here. It basically runs everything. And for the most part, I know that the way it's not necessarily, I mean, you could almost say that the prefectures all sponsor the sports as long as there is a program or a school willing to sponsor that sport. So the more, if there's more schools, then it's like bring it on type of thing. And, you're going to have your prefectures that are, they'll have their hardcore wrestlers, or, that the alumni or whatever that will maintain that, and keep that going.
At the most, how many schools did Kanagawa Prefecture, which is the prefecture you were in, how many schools did they sponsor?
I mean, the major schools, you had, 5, there were probably as many as 8 schools that had wrestling. But, in Japan, it works so differently. It's you have to go out and recruit. You have to be actively recruiting in order to get people into your program. Over here, it's like, over here in America, it's like you just go in, you just find what you want to do, and you just go in and you do it, because there's so many kids. There's so many kids at a high school. Even if you have a school that's got like 500 kids, they're going to go out and do whatever sports. That's one thing I should mention. Another thing that's different about how sports work in Japan versus the US is that if you're going to be in a if you're going to be in the club or if you're going to be on the team, that's what you're going to be dedicated for your entire, the entire time you're at your school, whether
Yeah,
you're
they don't have seasons
or whether you're in high school. Yes, your sport is going to be all year round. There's no season, so you don't have time. You don't have the time or the luxury to be able to go do another sport.
Yeah, it's not like here where you're gonna have like, it's not like here where there's essentially the fall, the winter, and the spring season. And so I've known athletes who could do all three, like three different sports, but
Right.
It's that's not like that. It's one sport.
Yeah, it's basically one sport, and if you're, and there's this collective mentality. It's like you're pretty much pressured. You've got to either really work hard to stay in and be on the A team, or if things are too much, then you're just going to quit. You might be pressured to quit because of there could be hazing and stuff going on in the club or the team. Not to say it doesn't happen over here too, but there is that kind of stuff that can pretty much. So
we both kind of had to deal with hazing in our own way.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm gonna be honest, the high school hazing for me was probably worse than the college hazing. I don't feel like I dealt with as much college hazing as I did with high school hazing, which is ironic because colleges are known for their hazing. But
so I think one of the other thing I have to be critical of when it comes to Japanese wrestling is that there's not enough. They really do not hold enough tournaments for the wrestler. It's like basically, for example, it's like the first tournament of the year is basically the qualifying tournament to get to the Kanto regional tournament, which is in and of itself another tournament, when I was there. And then the next month you had the tournament to try and get to the Inter-High, which is considered the premier high school national tournament for all sports. So, and the way that it's structured, at least in wrestling for that tournament, is only the winner gets to go. And so you had, in the case of the Kanto tournament, it's like top 4 or top 5 get to go, whatever that number is. But you only get only one person can qualify for the Inter-High national tournament. At least with Greco, if you made the finals, you would qualify. But even then, there's no room for error. One of the things another thing I have to be critical about is that they'll only use single elimination. So if you mess up, you're done. If something happened to you, there's no way for you to fight back. And I think it's not productive. It's detrimental to people. It's like, so if they're done, then they got to watch all the other people. They can't do anything after that. And at least over here,
I should note though that was a little bit of a part of the reason why I had, when I went from Zushi Kids to Yokosuka Middle School on the base, why I had kind of a surprise, because here we were, and it was single elimination. And we've gone over this before. I did not win for the first few years.
Well, even I didn't win the first year I was there.
Yeah, but you got some wins in before I did. But yeah, so all of a sudden when I do on base and they did these round robin tournaments, all of a sudden I'm just like, I'm wrestling again, which was okay because I ended up making second that first tournament. It's like all of a sudden it's like, I won a match. I won a match finally. But
that's why I'm thinking my wrestling career probably would have ended up a bit different if I,
Yeah, but I interrupted. You were saying, with over here, double elimination.
I think double elimination is very there's a lot of merit to it, because it's very beneficial is what I want to say, because it allows a person who's in the consolation brackets to kind of go over in their mind, kind of review. It's like, okay, what did I do wrong in that first match that I can try and work on in the second match? You can try and make adjustments, but if you're in a single elimination tournament, then you've got to sit out for another month or two before you have a chance to even try something out. So
yeah, it's not like here where you're wrestling almost every weekend.
mm-hmm. You know, there's so few tournaments over there that, and it's basically they weed out a lot of the weaker competition very quickly over there. So I know I have to,
and they have what, only those 4 tournaments, like just those 4?
only those 4 tournaments. Then you've got the JOC, which is the Junior Olympic Cup over there. But that is, you qualify for that based on how you did at the national tournaments and stuff, or if you're like if you're from the host prefecture or something, which in this case, you know, in it's always Kanagawa. So I think they could stand to make some changes, I think, as far as tournament format, but you know, hey, I'm just a guy who's been through that system, been an alumni, and I'm just, you know, hey, I'm over here in America, as you know, as they would pronounce it in Japanese. And so, are they going to make any major changes in the next few years? No, they're not going to make any major changes. But I think
it's like the least they could do is at least at the prefectural level have, like, you know, have like a tournament.
Here's where I would not have a problem with at the prefecture level. Have a do it in pools, or if you only got 4 people weight class, do your round robin. Do a whole round robin, meaning that all 4 guys got to wrestle 3 times. Again, I've seen the benefits of you've seen the benefits. I've had the benefits too. I think you want a double elimination, you know, having double elimination, the merit to it is that, hey, you want to motivate people to want to place higher, even if they don't place as high. If they have a chance to place, then you should give that to them. So I know I'm going off on a tangent, you know, right off the bat when we're trying to talk about, you know,
it's
how
pretty justifiable.
how Japanese wrestling, you know, works so far.
But you know, that's unfortunately one of those things where it's kind of a cultural thing. You know, I wonder if back when Japan was actually doing better at wrestling, if maybe they were doing things differently. But herein is a little bit of a problem, because they have so much success with wrestling, with women's wrestling on the international level. Then I hate to say it, but the system obviously works for women's wrestling. So the thought is probably something along the lines of, well, it must be able to work for men's wrestling, which every so often you do see a Japanese man medal, but you rarely see world champions nowadays.
They did have a gold medalist last year. They did have
a men's
one male did medal at the Olympics. Well, gold medal. There were actually a couple guys that medaled for Japan. But I know that they did have, somehow they're able to have at least one guy medal, but you know, you would think that you would want to maybe get a little more out there. You can't always be dependent, you know, you can't.
You know, I wonder if they're also afraid to do too much competition because they're afraid of burnout. But the problem there being that they're you know, they're it's like they're afraid to go too. It's like there's a medium. There is a medium that you can reach. Like, you know, it's, you know, like, again, just, it's like, have these guys do these, it's again, at the prefectural level, have them do these, you know,
like
individual, like, you know, have them do tournaments.
One issue that I always had, because it happened all 3 years, if I didn't make, like, let's say I didn't make the Kanto tournament, or, in all 3 years, I didn't make the inner high. So I couldn't I do competition in April and I do a competition in May. And then I can't do anything else until August, when they have the next qualifying tournament for the tournament in October. And then after that, if I don't make that, and of course I never made that tournament, I gotta wait until November.
Yeah, like having these like tournaments here and there, like that's something I really think the base schools were the fact that the base schools were willing to invite I can guarantee you those Japanese the wrestlers, I'm pretty sure one of the reasons why the wrestlers from Shonan were so good was because they were getting all these opportunities to wrestle with the Kinnick guys, because Kinnick was inviting these guys constantly.
Yeah,
inviting other schools as well.
Because you had the Kinnick tournament, and then they would actually duel each other too.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 times. And
that's another thing that I'll
that's another thing. The Japanese don't do duels. Well, they do the inter-high duel tournament, and that's it.
Okay, yeah, that's another thing that actually I'm wanting to talk about. But again, yeah, not to really, hit this too many times over the head, but I think that they could stand to benefit from, I think, in my mind, holding more tournaments is the first way of dealing with.
Yeah, let's face it, Shonan benefited from having this unique relationship with Kinnick, which I don't even know how. I should ask Scott Smith, because I have like a very loose I think I have a contact with him, but it's like I'm able to get a hold of him like every few years or something like that. But that is something I should ask him. How did you get a hold of them? Because he had to foster this relationship on his own, and he maintained it for what, 20 like 15, 20 years, something like that. It's just it's so. But yeah, those schools benefit because we established that they weren't the only school that would be invited to the tournaments. So as we established, the wrestlers who got invited to those extra tournaments, Shonan, I think Isogo might have gone to one even, but they always got the benefit of getting extra tournaments and double elimination tournaments. So they were like, what is this stuff that these foreigners are bringing to us? This is great. But yeah, Shonan was the best.
Yeah, Shonan.
There were many years where it was the best school.
I know that since Katsume, who was the coach there, and also Okuyashiki. After they left, though, I think they kind of did go down a little.
It also didn't help that the subsequent Kinnick coaches, I don't think they were able to foster that same relationship. Because let's face it, Scott Smith was a very special coach, and he's one of those guys where a lot of these people are thinking, who the heck is this guy Scott Smith that we're talking about? He was a very unique, special coach who was able to foster these relationships, who was able to get these guys. It's like you wanted to wrestle for this man because it's like he respected you. He had a sense of humor, and it's like he wanted to mold you to be the best wrestler he could possibly be with respect. And I'm gonna be honest, for some of my better coaches since then, there's only one man who I have met personally, coaching wise, who is comparable, and that's Vince Silva. So he's one of those literal 1 in a million coaches who's just so special.
So with that being said, Math, so I kind of do want to go over a little bit about the All Japan wrestling, high school wrestling tournament that just concluded over this weekend.
Yeah, we went on a tangent.
So this, so for those of you who can't read, I can read Japanese, so I'm going to translate a bit for this. And then my hope is that I do want to kind of cover this for, I'm hoping that we can build a Japanese audience too. So I do plan on covering this in Japanese. So if you do want to learn some Japanese, I would definitely recommend that you watch those upcoming videos. So with that being said, Matthew, yes, this is called the Kazama Cup All Japan tournament. Anyway, so the way that the Japanese do duels is they do a straight on win or lose in their case. So they only wrestle 7 weight classes. And so it's best 4 out of 3. That's what it comes down to. It's not like in the US where you go based on a point system.
Or international. When there's international duels, there's also a point system.
Yes, an international. Now, they do record points, scoring points, but the only time that they would use the points is in the case of a tie. Now, if you've got, let's say, a school, so I think if we were to,
is
for example,
Gauda still the dominant team over there?
I'm sorry?
Is Kasumi Gauda still the dominant?
No, they are not. That coach retired when he hit the mandatory retirement age. For those of you who don't know, well, depending on the prefecture or also depending on how things go nowadays, it's either the age of 60 or the age of 65. You have to retire. It's mandatory retirement. I think in this case, though, it was 60 for the Kasumi Gauda coach. And in future episodes, we're going to kind of, I want to go over, the Japanese high school scene, how that works out, who are the dominant schools and all that. So I will try to do that. But this coach was actually picked up by the current dominant team in the country, and that is Nippon Sports University, the Kashiwa High School. So Nippon Sports University is it's a university in Japan. It's one of the more dominant college wrestling programs in Japan, but they do have these I guess you would call them feeder high schools, and so the Kashiwa High School is one of their feeder programs. And
yeah, like you went to a feeder school, even though they
yes, I went to the Nihon University, a feeder school.
Yeah, which even though the college location did not have a wrestling program, it some guys went to the central college. Didn't Yoichi go to Nichi Dai?
Yes.
Yeah, that's one example.
So anyway, so the winner of, and just to give you an idea, this is how it works out. You wrestle 51 kilos, 55, 60, 65, 71, 80, and then you jump all the way to 125. There's no in between. If you're a 97 kilo wrestler, you're going to wrestle a heavyweight, basically.
Which there is a 97 weight.
Yeah, there is a 97
for individual.
Right. There is a 97 in the individual brackets at this tournament, but when it comes to duels, it's 80 and then 125. So it's kind of a disadvantage, if you're weighing more than 80 kilos and a little more than 80 kilos and you got to wrestle up a weight. That's, Anyway.
Definitely.
So the winner of the dual tournament was Nippon Sports University Kashiwa High School. They won their 5th title and the first time in 2 years. That's the coach there was hired after he retired from Kasumigaura. So, I want to dedicate, practice, probably a whole session to this guy. What I know about this guy, which we'll do at another time. But this
is the Kasumigaura coach.
He was picked up by Kashiwa Nittai. So
so he was forcibly retired at age 60. So he's doing he's doing 5 more years at this.
Yeah, I guess so. So anyway,
and that just goes to show coaching is.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's something else. Anyway, so this team, they're from Chiba Prefecture, which is north of Tokyo, and they beat the team they beat in the finals for the dual tournament was Inabe Sogo from Mie Prefecture, which is, I think you have to go west of Tokyo for that. And then in the semifinals, the Kashiwa High School, they beat this, it's called Tango Ryofu from Kyoto. And I found out that this high school actually came up because I'd never seen this high school before, in my years following the Japanese high school wrestling scene. I'd never seen this school come up, but I found out that it was formed after a merger between 2 schools, which included a former Kyoto school that was the powerhouse in Kyoto. And they've been competitive on the national level. So,
and this again kind of shows the difference between this again shows the difference between Japanese and American high schools. It's extremely rare to see high school mergers. The only example I could possibly think of is remember the Titans, these 3 schools merging to become TC Williams, and that was an extremely uniquely rare situation. And even in college, it's very rare. Like the 2 Long Island universities that merged to create the Sharks, which with wrestling didn't affect them because there was only one program between the 2, but it was D2, so they just ended up going from D2 to D1 without having to transition, which is another topic.
Because the merger gave them the sports needed to be D1.
Right. Oh, speaking the transition is probably another topic that could be brought up on that.
So so Kashiwa Nittai, they beat this Tango Ryofu from Kyoto, beat them 5-2. And then the other finalist team, Inabe, beat Nirasaki Tech from Yamanashi Prefecture. They beat them 4-3. So I did see a school from Kanagawa where I did wrestle. Where were they at? Here we go. Isogo Tech High School from Kanagawa Prefecture. They did make this tournament, but they lost 6-1. So only one of their wrestlers was able to win.
Didn't you say they've essentially become the power?
They've become the new powerhouse in Kanagawa, and that's thanks to one of the alumni from the school I was at, Coach Furusato. He went in there and he just really turned things around. So,
Well, it was already decent, right?
Yeah, they'd have 1 or 2 decent guys here and there, but yeah, now they're really up there. I don't know.
Well, as I recall, they were like a very new team when you were around.
Right. So anyway, so yeah, and then if you were to go into the into the individual wrestlers. And again, this is just, you know, this is not the right one. So, you know, if you're looking at now, this Kashiwa Nitai didn't really have as much luck winning the individual weight classes as they did winning the dual tournament from here. Although they did have a finalist at the 51 kilo weight class, but that person lost by tech fall to Mr. Kikuchi Yuta from Hiryu High School in Shizuoka. And then they did have a second finalist, but he did not win also. He lost by tech fall to Mr. Kanazawa from Jiyugaoka High School in Tokyo. At 60 kilos, there's their third finalist. You know, so they didn't have a good finals run. Again, lost by tech fall to this is Suda Takara from Tosu Tech in Saga. And actually, I've met this kid, Takara Suda, because Matthew, if you remember when I went to Japan the second time and I was living with mom and dad down in Sasebo, so I would go to the local high school and go practice there. And so this individual, you know, he was a bit younger, but him and his brother would go to this club practice, and I would, you know, talk with their parents and stuff. So I got to actually kind of roll around with him and stuff, you know. And when I'm talking about local wrestling club, you know, it's like a 40-minute train ride, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna say Sasebo. For those of you who don't know, Sasebo is like, it's like southern
Middle of
boonies.
nowhere. Yeah, the train. It's kind of like Metrolink down here in Southern California.
It's a lot more efficient. We cannot even begin to emphasize how much better the Japanese public transportation system is to the, you know, pitiful, extremely pitiful American transportation system. And it may partially have to do with the fact that, well, at one point it was nationalized, but a lot of the public transport in Japan now is private. But
meaning they're customer driven.
Yeah, they're customer driven. So, but of course, with the amount of people, it's like no wonder they're constant. It's like they're constantly making bank. But yeah, that's the difference between them. That's probably partially why the American public transit is so horrible, because of, especially with the trains, with the exception of these few private rails, a lot of it is you know, publicly run, the Metrolink, Amtrak. So that's why we have. Well, then they also have to share the track with the.
Yeah, they got to share the track with the freight train.
And the freight trains are going to prioritize it. It's like you may be using our track, but guess what? We got to make money. So BNSF, and Union Pacific are going to be like, we got to run these trains. You can wait.
So at 65 kilos, Mr. Hosokawa from Tango Ryofu High School in Kyoto, he tech falled his opponent, Mr. Hirai from Kofu Josai High School in Yamanashi Prefecture. And Matthew, as you know, Yamanashi Prefecture and Shizuoka, and I think there's one more prefecture in Kanto. They all kind of converge on Mount Fuji.
Yes, which is essentially the national symbol.
It's kind of like that. If you remember, out here we have that point on the map where 4 states, you know, all converge on one.
I believe that's called Four Corners.
Yeah, the 4 corners. So at 71 kilos, Mr. Yamaguchi from Jiyugaoka High School in Tokyo also, he pinned his opponent. I don't know how to read this. Apologies to that person. I think it's Mr. Kakude, but again, I don't know for sure.
There's a dozen ways to read kanji in Japanese.
From Shiga High School in Ishikawa. Then you've got Mr. Kamiya from Inabe Sogo High School beating I think this is Kakegawa from, I think this is called Toyoura High School in Yamaguchi Prefecture, which is down south, to give everyone a bit of a lesson in Japanese geography. Then you've got Mr. I think this is Uraki from Tosu Tech High School in Saga versus, and he tech followed Mr. Ueki from Ashikaga University High School in Tochi. And then you got the heavyweight match. I believe this is Batbayal Nam. Trying to read this. Nambal Daguwaf. And I believe I've been reading about this guy. I think he's a Mongolian exchange student.
Maybe you should tell them about Mongolian wrestling. That's kind of a unique.
That'll be another time for another story. But he was the lone Kashiwa Nitai wrestler to win his division, even though he was one of 4 finalists. And he tech-falled, I don't even know how to pronounce this name, his opponent from Shiga High School. So, you know, that's kind of a roundup of how, you know, this tournament. Again, I'm going to try and I'm going to make a video in Japanese about this, kind of, you know, just talk about the results a bit, and hoping to kind of expand into that to cover more Japanese wrestling as we go along, too, based on our connection to Japan and stuff.
Essentially, you're going to make a translation of just everything that you covered.
Yeah, without our little tangent. But hey, you know, it's good to talk about stuff, definitely. So anyway, but yeah, that's the Kazama Cup All Japan High School Tournament in a nutshell. And so just kind of cover a few more things pretty quickly. So Matthew, as you're aware, you know, UWW is the that's the organization that runs
United World Wrestling, used to be called FILA.
Yes. And the United World Wrestling Association really came into existence after the sport of wrestling was threatened with being dropped from the Tokyo Olympics. And so the wrestling community around the world really banded together to, you know, tell the ILC, hey, you know, you can't drop one of the original Olympic sports. And so
yeah, in both the Greek Olympics and the modern Olympics.
And a lot of people had a lot of grief against the original FILA
organization.
There were a lot of things about it that was just not favorably received.
There were scandals. The bureaucracy was just horrible. And then I think there was a vote of no confidence in like the president and most of the board, right?
Well, here was the other thing. One of the voting members on the FILA board, you know, so I think there were like 15 voting members, countries, or representatives. The U.S. didn't have anyone to represent them on that board. And I think that's one of the things that we definitely had grief with FILA about. So with that being said, though, I want to talk about FILA, UWW rankings, specifically how, United States wrestlers are doing. And so just to kind of, so apparently the way that UWW determines their rankings, they really did an overhaul of how they're doing it, which I think this is an interesting way that they're doing it. Maybe this could be applied sometime in the future in the US. But basically what they do is that they award you points based on your finish at a tournament. So, as they're saying, I guess the first ranking series event on the calendar happened. Now, I'm not sure if
So from the beginning of one tournament to the end, like end of whatever the season is, they award points, and that's how they determine the ranking.
based on your finish. The only thing I and I'll be getting into this in a minute is, so where's the cutoff? Where does it start? Where's the cutoff? Unless it's kind of a continuous thing, which then would determine your points, I guess. So this is so when you go to a tournament.
Do they place all the way down to 16?
Apparently, yeah. So if you finish, 16th, you get points. But man, if you finish first, you finish top 6, because you get 2/3 and 2 fifth places. You're scoring some major points, which is going to count towards your ranking. And I would think this helps them to determine seeding and stuff too. And they talk about additional.
Well, and this also goes to show that participation is kind of a motivating factor.
Right. So they so if you place at a tournament, this is what you're going to score. It does look like, although one thing that they are pointing out is, for example, here's how it goes. So let's say you sign up for a tournament, but you're the only person in your weight class. You don't score any points because there's really nobody to compete against, I guess, is how they're doing this. And then if the tournament only has 2 to 5 participants, those rankings up here will be cut in half, and only the top 3 score points. So that's how they work that one. And then 6 to 12, you will get these points, but you're not getting any bonus points, I guess is what they're doing. But if you're in a weight class where there's 13 to 16 wrestlers, then all these people get an additional 3,000 points. I don't know how that works out, and then if it's more than 16, all wrestlers get at least 5,000 points.
So not only is it motivating in the rankings for you to
participate,
but also to participate in essentially bigger tournaments.
Yeah, because that could help you to gain rankings on the world stage.
Basically. I'll just throw an example, because when we would go to those USA tournaments, I don't know why the Armenians were coming to Southern California. But
there's a very big Armenian community.
Well, yeah, but I don't know why these these wrestlers are coming to Southern California. So, hypothetically speaking, why in the world would you have a world-ranked Armenian wrestler coming down to Southern California? I know they're known for the wrestling, and I know that there's a huge Armenian community in Southern California. But it's kind of why are you having these are actual Armenians? Why are they coming down to this little tournament being held in a high school gymnasium?
Yeah, we would. Didn't we had to wrestle a few of them, didn't we?
I got suplexed by one. I cannot tell you how scary that was.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh no.
Anyway, yeah, interesting.
I somehow managed to not get dropped on my head.
So Matthew, what do you think about? I mean, do you think that this is something that, hey, maybe this could really, if you want to talk about, because coaches all the time are going to complain about rankings and stuff. They're going to complain about.
Just let it be Just let it be based on the results.
Don't you think? And this really,
And here's the thing: the seedings are always subjective, anyways. They have these seeding meetings, and they go out there and they, say, "Oh, my guy placed in this, or my guy placed in that." Blah 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 blah. It's just well, just let the results, it's well, when it comes to the rankings at bare minimum, just let the results speak for themselves.
Okay, so when I've had to sit in a couple of these seating meetings, especially when it comes to college level seating meetings, oh my goodness, they can get so heated. And the other thing is, it can drag on for so long. You can spend almost 20 minutes on one weight class when you've got 9 others to go.
Do these meetings last hours?
Not hours, but I mean, one meeting lasted an hour at least. It's like, how much of it do you have to discuss? And really, when you're trying to iron out the criteria, it's like, I think, yes, it should be, where did your wrestler place? Because then a lot of times, and this probably happens at high school too, if you've got head to head, and then like, okay, so the guy who would nominally be ranked higher, by all the coaches in the poll, if they finish higher in the tournament, but hey, they lost to some, person who's probably ranked, 5 or 6 ranks lower than them. It's like, oh, well, then they should be ranked higher than whoever the number 2 or the number 3 person is.
Yeah, like like for example, I do the like rankings for MMA Freak, and it's really really hard to like figure out who. It's like you keep the champions at number 1. Typically, the UFC champions, they're the best of the weight class. You keep them at number 1. That's just how it's been for the longest time. But it's just like everyone else is just like, well, it's. And the thing is, I modeled my ranking, the MMA Freak ranking system, when it comes to eligibility after, I think it was MMA Fighting, but their rule is that 12 months of it's 12 months participation. After that, it's out. Obviously, when it comes to wrestling, it's like, of course you're participating. That's not going to be a problem. But it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, head to head, win losses. How do I plug this person here? And at times I've just done the rankings myself, or we've had an actual committee of people submitting it, and it's just like, okay, well, and if it's done based off of committee, well, I do these points, and it's just so it's just one of those like, well, how head to head helps out. I would say
head to head would help out in that situation. I don't know that it's can you really, should you apply it so much in a tournament? If you're talking about the 1 and 2 seed, if you're going to determine that, based on, you've got finishes and then you've got head to heads, that can be taken into consideration. But when you've got a guy who's clearly number 1, and then you've got a guy who's going to clearly be the 8th seed, but you want to throw in head to head, oh, he beat him, he pinned him or something in one tournament. Is that really applicable in the long run? I don't know that it's really worth it to really argue that. So, yeah, I mean, maybe, NFHS or even, NCAA coaches maybe could follow this model at some point. I think it would definitely be help. It's like, okay, so you got this big college tournament. It's like, okay, if you place, you're going to score a certain number of points. And that even could be a motivator for,
well,
there's a lot of times where guys, they just don't want to wrestle anymore. They've had it. They'll medical forfeit out because they just don't want to wrestle. It's not worth their time or something, which I can understand to an extent, but as Coach So, it's it's like you're going out there to wrestle the best. You're not going out there to be, forfeiting a match at some point.
Well, of course, this comes from the guy who tried to wrestle injured his seat. Well, then again, it was his seat.
You're at the NCAA's, yes.
Yeah, it was just like you're gonna wrestle or you're not. So.
Right. So, anyway, so let's just take a quick look at so apparently it was the Yasar Dogu, which I know that this is a big tournament. I've heard about it several times, although not really followed the results in the past. But this Yasar Dogu, which I think it took place in I think that's normally in Turkey, if I'm not mistaken.
You know, there used to be this big, I don't know if it still goes on, but like during the Soviet era, there used to be this big Russian tournament called like the Tbilisi Cup or something like that. And that was
Yes, it still goes on, although with recent events, not sure that it's going to happen. So we'll see. Anyway, so I want to
maybe the Russians will hold it for them in Bulgaria.
So, Matt, just a quick overview of, and you know, they kind of have, you know, can't really look at this other than you got to look at, you got to look at the, you know, on the left side. So, for anyone paying attention here, just look at some of our American wrestlers that are. So, Thomas Gilman, who did medal at the Tokyo Olympics last year, he is currently sitting in first place. And I guess with the scoring system, he has 79,200 points, which is a pretty big score. So
Pretty
puts him
respectable.
well ahead of the second place wrestler from the Russian Wrestling Federation. So, you know, Gilman, we got as number one right now. And then the next wrestler, you have to go, then you would go to the 61 kilo freestyle, and that is Dayton Fix from Oklahoma State. And I guess he has been active on the scene. In fact, I think he was not at the Olympics last year, so but he is ranked, so he has been competing internationally. You know, enough that it's giving him second place. Third place behind him is Hasegawa from Japan. So that's the second pro. We actually have quite a few people ranked in the world rankings. So then if you know, I mean, what do you think so far? You know, it's like you got Gilman who's a, you know, Olympic medalist. I mean, that shouldn't come as a shock, right?
Yeah, that's obviously if you're well, if if you're participating, then yeah,
If you're continually participating. At 70 kilo freestyle, we have James Green from the U.S. and it looks like he moved up in the rankings. So my guess is he probably competed at Yasar Dogu, and I'll have to check what he did later for that. This next one, Math, I think you'll like this one. You know, not much needs to be said about that, right? And
isn't he participating in like these one-off wrestling tournaments that are like held by Flow Wrestling? Well, no, they're not tournaments. They're like duels essentially.
Right. Well, and you know, he did medal at the Olympics. He did take bronze. So, you know, there he is right there. They took bronze at the Olympics. So, I mean, not a big surprise that he's, you know, ahead on such a score like this. And then if you go to 79, you'll see another familiar name. Yes. So that is no surprise at all, given how Mr. Burroughs has been doing. So he's ranked number one there. And I have noticed, Matthew, that obviously the U.S. has the most wrestlers ranked in the freestyle. And here's another one, David Taylor. You know, from the college.
You know, to me, it always seems like they've always done better at freestyle, which was why that one time they won the Greco division was kind of unusual. Like
yeah, the U.S. has typically not been that great at Greco.
Well, they have good individuals, but it's typically all around they're better at freestyle. And that's obviously because they the girl, they go through and grow up wrestling a very similar style, folk style. So,
right. So then at 92, I believe, yes, Jaden Cox.
aha.
Yep. Jaden Cox pretty well. He just, he wrestled at Missouri, and then he come out and start really doing good. It's like he bloomed, and made the Olympics and stuff. So, it's like, hey, man, whatever works, and hey, just cheering him on and stuff. So 97 kilos. I mean, this isn't really much of a surprise, given who it is, Matthew. Snyder ranked number 2, second to Abdul Rashid Sadulev, who is the reigning gold medalist at that weight class. And I'm sure you're, Kyle won the gold medal at the 2016 Olympics, and Sadulev won the gold medal at the weight class under him. And then you gotta hand it to Sadulev, because he moved up a weight class, and my understanding is he wanted to challenge Snyder. He wanted to take on the best of the best. And so when they met up at the Olympics last year, and Sadulev won that match. And so
Have they wrestled before that? I feel like they did.
They did. They did. They wrestled at I think it was like I don't know if it was the World Championships, or they wrestled at the World Cup. Because again, Sadulev went up specifically because he wanted to challenge Snyder, and Snyder won that first match. I remember that.
That sounds like Vision Quest.
Yeah.
I have to confess, I've never seen that movie the whole
reverse.
I have to confess, I've never seen that movie the whole way through.
I have not either. Probably be something interesting. We can review some wrestling movies and such.
Like up until Foxcatcher, I think that was the most mainstream that
there's actually been a few. There's been a few. I think there's one. Was it In the Dark or something?
Well, most wrestling movies, if you really think of them, most of the time I think of them as like these indie projects that are popular within the wrestling community, but they don't really get too much mainstream attention. The last thing, like Foxcatcher, I don't remember if they won any Oscars, but they were nominated.
Yeah, he was nominated for best supporting actor.
Yeah, it's like that's probably as mainstream as you can get. I remember reading a while back that, like, back when Taylor Lautner was big, he was thinking about appearing in a remake of Vision Quest, which, to be fair, he did come from a wrestling background. So, but that ended up not happening.
The one thing is, except in Sadulev's case, he's doing a reverse Vision Quest.
Yeah, he's going up, whereas in
up.
Well, actually, here's an interesting thing. Vision Quest is based off of a novel. In the novel, I don't know if he actually moved down in weight. He may not. I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure if he moved down in weight. Yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing. Maybe that would be another good project. Is maybe that if we both watched the movie and then read the book, like a book club type thing.
Anyway, so it's not, Snyder's there. He's, and, it's just, can he beat Sadulev in the matches where it matters? That's what's going to count, so we'll have to see. This is an intense rivalry. I mean, it's good for the sport to have an intense rivalry.
It is good for the sport.
And kind of feeling for Sadulev with the what's going on, obviously, with Russia Ukraine stuff. So
yeah, some of these guys, they just want to wrestle. They're like, why is this happening? An interesting thing, you got that Nike logo right there. I actually found out Nike was the name of the Greek goddess of victory.
Interesting.
Which here's an interesting thing. I found that out when I was reading of comparable deities to the One Piece god Nika, which that's kind of a unique story by itself.
So at heavyweight, I do believe we do have a yes, Gable Steveson. However, he's going to start dropping off the ranks because
non-participation.
He's not participating anymore. So I think he moved down from the third spot, but I know that when I checked the rankings after the new year, he was number 1. But since he's not competing anymore, obviously, as we discussed last week, he's going to WWE. So he's pretty much done. So, but there is another heavyweight on the list, and that's Nicholas. I don't know how to pronounce this. I think it's Jaldowski. That's my guess. Apologies to Mr. Nicholas. If anyone wants to, give me a link or something about how to pronounce his name, I'm more than happy to take you up on that offer. But anyway, so we do have another wrestler there. So Matthew, if I'm looking at my list, because I did compile this list before we went live. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have, there are 10 wrestlers on the men's freestyle from the U.S. ranked. Again, though, one is going to fall off.
I'm guessing that's multiple per weight class, considering the number of weight.
Well, the one weight class we're missing is 65. So we have people in every other weight class except for 65. So, and then if we go to Greco-Roman, we do have Mr. Max Nori. He is in 9th place. And then the only other Greco wrestler we have is at 97, and that is Mr. Tracy Hancock.
Well, as we've established, the U.S. has never really been known for its wrestling, or it's Greco.
So now, if we move to the women's weight class, the women are actually doing quite well, along with the men in freestyle. So Sarah Hildebrandt is ranked 1st at 50 kilos. And then if we move up to, so there was nobody ranked in the top 10 at 53. So then we have to go to 55, which is the next weight class where there's someone ranked, and that is Jenna Burkett. So she is ranked 4th. Then, if we move to 57 kilos, Matthew. Helen Maroulis.
My teammate.
So, as everyone knows, Helen Maroulis pulled the, she did a Rulon Gardner at the 2016 Olympics. She upset the reigning Olympic champion, Saori Yoshida, broke her 80-plus match winning streak.
And then in a Rulon had to deal with various injuries in between Olympics, and was able to come back and if she hadn't had to face the Olympic gold medalist in the semis, then she might have.
Right. So like Rulon, 4 years later, well, in her case, 5 years later, she had to settle for bronze. So yeah, similar stories to follow, but she's still going. We're seeing that happen. So then we're gonna move up to, again, everyone's there. You move up to 59 kilos. Maya Nelson, 5th place in the rankings. So, the wrestlers are consistently there. You know, we're doing pretty good. Kayla Miracle, she's in 4th place, although she did move down from the 3rd place spot at 62 kilos. Then we go to 65. Forrest Molinari, she is ranked 2nd at 65 kilos. Then you move up to 68 kilos, which we will see a very familiar name. And that would be Tamira Mensah-Stock, our gold medalist at the Tokyo Olympics. So she looks like she did fall down from the 1st place spot, but if she's going to keep going, then, you know, I think she'll keep it up and she'll do what she needs to do, I think.
You know, another interesting thing, she said that she also wanted to do pro wrestling, but I wonder why she hasn't been picked up yet.
You know, who knows what they're thinking. Hard to tell. Okay, so then at the 72 kilo weight class for the women's, in 10th place, Kylie Welker. And then at 76 kilos, you'll see a familiar name also. Adeline Gray.
I forgot what medal did she take?
So at the Olympics, she took 2nd.
Okay, I thought she was in the finals. For some reason, I was remembering her winning it, but maybe that was just.
Well, as you recall, Adeline Gray has been on the scene for a while, and so for her to be able to have, you know, taken the silver was pretty significant for her. You know, just because of the amount of time she's put in. So she's currently ranked 1st right now. So that is our UWW rankings related to the US wrestlers that are on those rankings. Math. I mean, what do you think? You know, that's 10 freestyle men's, 2 Greco. And then if you're looking at, you know, basically all the weight classes except 53. So there's 9 women ranked also. So it looks like, you know, we continue to remain pretty consistent and pretty dominant in the freestyle, especially when we've got 4 men ranked 1st, 1, 2, you know, 3 women also ranked 1st. What do you think this means for us, at least going into, you know, for the US Team USA going into this upcoming you know, international season?
Well, we're consistent. I mean, we always produce consistently good wrestlers, and if in some way classes we've got multiple people listed, that just means that, well, we've got you know, multiple good people that could potentially go out there and do good. And another thing to keep in mind is that isn't it only the world team that they actually do the team trials for?
Right.
Like we're essentially basically right now we're in the open tournament season essentially.
Yep. This is open tournaments.
Or some of them might be invites, but you know, these are elite competitions, and it's possible for multiple people from from one nation to go in there. I don't know if there's a cap. I would imagine that it depends on the tournament, because certain tournaments obviously are going to have certain.
Some tournaments are invitational and some tournaments are open, obviously.
Yeah, like the opens, obviously it's. I don't know if you have to. Obviously, anyone can participate in. Obviously, the invite there might be qualifications, but you know, the fact of the matter is you know.
Well, certain tournaments, when it comes to like regional, like for example, Pan American, you know, you have to fight to represent the team for that. World Championships, obviously. So there's a few of those that you have to, you know, you have to qualify
Well,
for.
another way of putting it is like, for example, in swimming, you'll see a lot of these people, even though they have like USA, they're gonna like they're gonna be the Speedo uniforms or name are gonna be on there. These are the types of tournaments where you're gonna see the endorsements more prominent than the flags.
Mm-hmm.
Is one good way of putting it.
Yeah. Right now, the Budapest European Championships are going on right now, so we'll hopefully, just kind of go over the results of that in our next podcast, and then, let's go into just real, before we get into this will be the second to last topic we'll be covering for the night. The United States Marine Corps Folk Style Nationals and Boys National High School Recruiting Showcase. And Matthew, as we were discussing earlier, to qualify for this tournament, what do you got to do? You have to, if you're a high school state champion, doesn't matter which year, if you won the state tournament as a high schooler, I would imagine you have to wrestle that weight class. If you won that, I don't think you can wrestle up or something. So if you're gonna wrestle up, that means that you're gonna have to make sure that you're qualifying, based on that year and stuff. So high school state placers, which would typically be top 8, national prep champions, any year. And then if you were a placer at the NHSCA Virginia Beach High School Nationals.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's something. Is that? Yeah, I've always heard the name Virginia Beach mentioned in wrestling, and this is why. Is because that tournament's held at Virginia Beach every year, essentially.
Right. So, that's how that. And then apparently there's a they do a Masters tournament too. I would love to go do that, although I'd have to figure out probably losing a few pounds before getting into
We both
that.
need to lose. We both need to lose significantly.
So yeah,
we're both carrying probably about 20-30 pounds of flab that we can afford to.
What this looks like. So yeah, just to kind of, so these qualifications automatically qualify for the high school recruiting showcase, and even though they're calling it Boys National, it looks like it's for both boys and girls. So
that's probably just the name of the thing.
Right. And so obviously it's your sanctioned place. USA Wrestling will be hosting several recruiting qualifiers held in they do host qualifiers too. So that's how that goes. But basically, Matt, this is the one where you show how you're gonna do. This is really the big national tournament. So I'm very sure that we're gonna see a lot of probably a lot of the people who placed at state these past couple of weeks, from CIF. I'm very sure that we're going to see a lot of them there wrestling against the the best of the best. I think this is the tournament where they're going to really turn out. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes, don't you think?
This is one of those places where maybe for some of those guys, I was able to the fact of the matter is the way that we went about getting me the scholarship, the scholarship and the recruitment, not everyone has that insight. And let's face it, Dad did it. That he did all the research. He found the
program. Did all the research. Yeah.
And yeah, he essentially was the one who got me into MOBAB. But the reality is not everyone has an insightful father like that. So maybe this is a way of some of these people being able to go out and say, hey, look what I can do at this level. Maybe you should consider, offering me something. And I think maybe this is still far enough out to where, if someone hasn't committed to a college, then they can, put themselves out there and say, hey, I'm eligible. So recruitment would be possible at an event like it's called the showcase for a reason. For all intents and purposes, this is a combine.
So yeah,
Which interestingly enough, the NCAA, so the lowest college 4-year level, the club teams, they have something that they call a high school combine.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're interested in possibly wrestling at that level, like you're just, obviously you're just going to do it because you still love the sport. But
so this shows how they do this. Obviously, obviously with the ages and stuff, the time periods they show. Obviously when it's lower, it's 1-1-1. When you get a little bit higher, you got 1-130, 130, which is, you might as well do like 2-1-1 or something. I don't know how again, that's kind of a, then you do 2-2-2 when you're getting into high school, and then 1-2-2 in consolation. So no big surprise there. And then, hey, they do have the Masters, and they got 1 minute, 130, 130, 1-1-1. So, hey man, if we can get into shape or something, hey, we should go to this, and then talk about an episode to talk, the experience and stuff. I think that would be a great thing to do, don't you think?
That would be interesting.
So hey, I think let's try and plan this out for next year, maybe. I mean,
what's interesting though, we're technically in different Masters divisions.
We are. Yeah, that is I guess the way that they have it out, because I guess it's every 8 years or so. But
look, Masters D is wait a minute. Oh no, Dad doesn't even fit in Masters D. Is there something older? Oh, there we go. Masters E is what our old man would be doing. The funny thing, he started wrestling as an adult, and he went to those adult.
He did one tournament, and he went 1-1. I remember.
Well, let's be honest. With how in shape he is, with how much in shape he is, he could probably go to that tournament and do much better than a lot of the he could probably get.
That's if he,
just because of the fact that he's in shape. Because let's face it, he's in better shape than either of us. Probably combined.
Anyway, so with that being said, Matt, I think just a few news tidbits to close out this episode. So and a big, I want to give a shout out to Wrestler Report on Instagram. For those watching our show, please give Wrestler Report a follow on Instagram, because he put a lot of this stuff I'm getting is from him. So just kind of some tidbits, trivia. So looks like for this year at the national tournament, the D2 level schools, Davis and Elkins, Alderson Broaddus, and Lander universities all got their first All-Americans. So congratulations to them. At the D3 level, you had Averett, Alvernia, Castleton, Roanoke, and Southern Virginia all getting their first All-Americans. Some things to look at you all had. The NAIA Coach of the Year was Coach Dana Vogt of Duane University. I believe that's in Nebraska, if I'm not mistaken. So he was the coach of the year based on votes from his peers. The school had 4 All-Americans this past tournament, plus they finished 5th place, which was their highest ever placing at the NAIA championships. Also, for NAIA, you had 3 wrestlers who did place at the NAIA championships this year. All became 5-time All-Americans. You had Justin Portillo from Grandview, Armand Fayazi from Vanguard, and I think I got this person's name wrong. Let me double check to make sure here. So yes, and then Isaac Bartell of Montana State, I believe. I might have this the other way around. So I think Justin Portillo looks like is from Montana State, and Isaac Bartell is from Grandview. So if I got those wrong, I apologize. Also, we had there were 9 wrestlers that were at the NJCAA tournament. And let me see if I can find this on here. So yeah, 9 wrestlers from the NJCAA tournament who placed this year, and they all became 3-time All-Americans at the NJCAAs, thanks to the receiving a 3rd year of eligibility for COVID. Parker Dobrocki, Marcus Branford, Jake Beeson, DeVille Dentis, Christian Minto, Jose Rodriguez, Josh McFarlane, Cole Feliciano, and Dan Baker. So that's what we have. And then also another tidbit from our good friend Wrestler Report. North Iowa Area Community College will be adding women's wrestling for the upcoming 23-24 academic year. So congratulations to North Iowa Area Community College for that.
Does NJCAA have women's wrestling?
I do not believe so, but it looks
So
like
it would have to be WCWA, or
that would be my guess. Actually, correction.
Either that, or it would be in the NCWA women's division, because they do have a women's division.
Just a small correction. Sorry. Fall 2022 is when they will be starting the program. So with that being said, Matthew, last thing, USA Wrestling, again from Wrestler Report, USA Wrestling has announced the Final X World Team Trials. The first part of it will be June 3rd at Oklahoma State at Gallagher Arena. And then, yes, so Gallagher EBA Arena. So that will be June 3rd. And then the second part of the World Team Trials will actually take place on the 8th of June at Madison Square Garden.
Oh.
So the World Championships, the Senior World Championships, will be taking place in Serbia from the 10th of September until the 18th of September. So let's see how that goes. Who's going to qualify? I think with the U.S. Open coming up in Vegas, that'll be another thing to look out for, who qualifies for that. Obviously, top 8 places from there get to go to the World Team Trials. Other people that are able to qualify include the NCAA D1 champion, among other various things. And so that's something we're hoping to cover in the future.
Yeah, because there's like regional the World Team Trials is one of those things, like there's like regional qualifiers. Rafael Santana, you remember him?
I remember him very well.
Yeah, he said he participated at the team trials. I wonder if maybe it was because of his Navy wrestling.
Maybe.
He was an interesting guy. We've
Quite.
met some very interesting people over
We've met some very interesting people in our life. There's a couple people. Remember the middle school coach at Yokosuka? McGuire was his name.
McGuire, Scott McGuire.
Was it Scott McGuire? Man,
Yeah.
I know for a fact he was a D1 wrestler. I would love to meet up with him
We
someday.
should try tracking him down.
I'm very sure it's not that hard to do in this day and age.
Yeah, that would be memorable.
Again, to our audience, we're hoping that we're gonna be able to get some people to get interviewed on, because I think we really want to. I think that's going to be something that we're looking forward to.
I should note that I am making connections with members of West Hills. I might be able to score an interview sometime in the near future.
All right, Matthew. So with that being said, and so everyone, again, Matthew is on Instagram and Twitter, Matthew, I believe, and you can follow him on.
I am also on Snapchat, but I don't really go on there that often. Like it's been years.
Be sure to check out Matthew's website, MMAfreak.com, where he covers mixed martial arts related stuff. And
we are on Twitter, Facebook, and again, we do have an Instagram, but the Instagram hasn't been in use as much. But we are active on all the other platforms. So yeah, come and give us a shout out.
Matthew, where can our audience find our podcasts?
Okay, we are for our visual podcast. We are on YouTube and Rumble. For our audio contest, we are on Acast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Other platforms will be added in the future.
And for some upcoming content, the Japanese Haru Basho, the Haru tournament, March tournament is over for sumo wrestling. So I'm hoping to make a video regarding that. And I'm hoping to make a Japanese language video to cover the Kazama Cup All Japan High School Tournament.
Also check. Also, we are now putting up clips of our shows, and they are proving to be successful. So also be sure to check those out.
All right, Matthew. Well, thank you as always, and to everyone, I hope you have a great night, a great week, and we will be seeing you next week for more Samurai Brothers Wrestling, talking about wrestling. Take care.
Take care. See you on the mat.